So the Chargers just came up with a massive win over the Tennessee Titans, 17-14. And like we do every single week, we're going to be going through my instant reactions to this game without taking a huge deep dive into all the background stats, just my initial reaction to actually watching the game, and then just the stats on, a very base level, just looking at, your base stats, the yards, all that stuff, without looking at like random percentages and all this type of stuff. So my initial reactions to this incredible win for the Chargers, getting 17-14 win over at the starting point of this game, 7-6 Tennessee Titans, who are still the 4th seed in the playoffs. Chargers move on to 8-6, take back their playoff spot, which is beautiful to see. But, even though the Chargers get this win, this wasn't all great throughout most of the game. There was still plenty of struggles, but let's cover this a little bit piece by piece. First, let's go through the actual game, and then we'll kind of dive into a couple more important things. So, entering this game, both the Chargers and the Titans were 7-6, with the Chargers having the 8th seed and the Titans having the 4th seed. There was a lot of uncertainty entering this game. The Titans have Derrick Henry, who is one of the best running backs in the entire league. The Chargers have one of the worst run defense in the entire league. Other side of things, Chargers have one of the best, a top 3 passing offense, while the Titans have a bottom 2 passing defense. A lot of expectations happened entering this game, but for the most part, it seemed like quite the opposite would occur. As I mentioned, Chargers have a top 3 passing offense. Titans have a bottom 2 passing, passing defense. And, we didn't see what was expected. Justin Herbert didn't go crazy through the air, and honestly, for the most part, he didn't really have that great of a game. So, Chargers, for Justin Herbert, he has 313 yards. He goes 28 for 42, a pretty solid game for the most part when you're looking at it like that, but he has 2 interceptions. Now, let it be known, the 1 interception at the end of the half, not so much on him. The second interception, I kind of leaned towards him, but a lot of expectations were Justin Herbert was going to have a really, really good game and score a lot of touchdowns. He didn't see that. We thought that Austin Ekeler was not going to have a great game on the ground. The Chargers weren't going to have a great game on the ground. They end up with, 80-some yards on the ground. And, overall, just not what was expected. And for the Titans, on the other side of things, Derrick Henry still had a really good game. 104 yards, a touchdown, almost had the second one at the end of the game there if it wasn't for Ryan Tannehill sneaking that one in there. Averaged 5 yards per carry. And for the most part, a lot of things, at least on the Chargers side of things, didn't go as planned. So, the first team to score was the Chargers. They would score on their opening drive of the game. And something weird that I've noticed, and it happened in the first drive, but it continued through the rest of the drive. Chargers, for the most part, had a pretty solid drive there. Justin Herbert was slinging it very well. The run game was working pretty well. But once the Chargers got into the red zone, they ran the ball 5 times in a row. They didn't pass a single time in the red zone in the first drive or the rest of the game. The Chargers threw 0 passing plays in the red zone. That's really weird, especially, when you look at team stats-wise. Titans, one of the best run defenses in the league. Top 3. Chargers, not very good on, run offense. Chargers, really good passing offense. Titans, really bad passing defense. But the Chargers would run 0 passing plays in the red zone. Although it worked, in both circumstances, the Chargers score when in the red zone due to these run plays. It wasn't because of the calls, if we're being honest. This wasn't Joe Lombardi being, a magician. The first one was, multiple attempts. You go for it on 4th and 2. You convert on that. I believe that was 4th and 2. And then you keep running in, and you finally find a way to get in. Joshua Kelly was the one to get the touchdown on the very first drive due to the fact that Austin Ekeler had been pulled out. I think it was arm injuries, what it looked like for the most part, like his right arm, right forearm, elbow, something like that. He would return, obviously. He would score the second touchdown late in the game. But, excuse me. You leaned heavy on the run game, especially in the red zone, which was not surprising. And you leaned in on the run game early. Justin Herbert hadn't thrown an interception to this point, and you still ran 5 rushing plays in the red zone without letting Herbert even try to pass it. Not even a screenplay, which, yes, I've scrutinized, but they didn't even try to do that, which is pretty much the go-to for Joe Lombardi in the red zone. Now, I'm going to say I think Joe Lombardi called a subpar game. Not abysmal, not great, just his average, which is below average, but his average level of a game. Now, it's not all on him. Justin Herbert obviously didn't have a great game. For the most part, Mike Williams didn't have a great game until the end there, but not a lot going for the Chargers. But they do score on their opening drive, which was the 4th time this year through 14 games now. So, pretty solid. They can score on the opening drive. And then the Titans would they score in the first half? The second quarter. Yeah, second quarter, Titans score. And I believe it was a 63-yard play. And they announced this from the announcers. Really interesting fact, and something that should have definitely been, game plan for on that drive, that touchdown drive. 6 plays, 63 yards, and every single yard went through Derrick Henry. Derrick Henry had all 63 yards and the touchdown on that drive. And the Chargers couldn't really do anything about it. I mean, you're averaging, 10 and some change yards every single play, and Derrick Henry's the one that's doing it every single time. You had a passing play where it was, right in the flats there, multiple running plays, and of course the rushing touchdown, which he definitely earned. I mean, the Chargers were pretty full on the box. It was a wild card play, and Derrick Henry still found a way to get in. That's what's going to happen with a big body. Derrick Henry, I don't know if this happened previously, but what's going on with his hair, man? I really enjoyed the thick kind of braid on the back of his head, and now he has, I don't know if you'd call it dreads or what you'd call it, but now he has individual twists in his hair instead of the big old braid. I really enjoyed the big braid. Not sure why. I think it actually worked for him, which normally doesn't happen, but that changed. He still had a good game, so I guess it didn't affect him there. Just funny that I thought about that. And you go into the second quarter. Once again, the Chargers aren't able to score any points, and you have that, honestly incredible defensive play by the Titans. The Chargers are in a position where they're pretty much guaranteed a field goal as long as they don't lose yards in this situation. But the Chargers take a risk. They throw it towards the end zone, which, you're probably going to do, especially when you got about 13 seconds left in, that half. Chargers throw it. Justin Herbert throws it towards Mike Williams, who is covered, and the Titans make a really, really good play on the ball. The person that was covering Mike Williams at the time kind of gets pushed out of bounds as he's catching it himself, and shovel passes it back inbounds. It was backwards, so it wasn't a flag, and they come up with the interception. They stay in bounds, and that takes away the 3 points the Chargers would have had at the end of the second half, which would have guaranteed, a win. The Chargers wouldn't have to worry about that big win, big kick by Dicker the kicker at the end of the game there. Who was covering? Joshua Kalu was the one that got the interception at the end of the half, but he was the one that it was shoveled to. I'm trying to remember. I think it was Roger McCreary was the one who caught it as he was going out of bounds, and then shoveled it back in to Joshua Kalu. That was a really, really good play, really impressive play. I wasn't even mad at Herbert. I don't think it was a bad throw. I think Mike Williams probably could have got a hand on it to prevent it. You're just taking that shot, hoping that something works out. If it doesn't, you kick that field goal. Not blaming Herbert too much on that. Not even blaming Mike Williams. It's a tough situation. Props to the Titans. I guess I didn't even bring this up at the beginning here. I want to say to the Titans, incredible game for you guys. Honestly, I don't think the Titans were expected to win. They played a really tough game on the offense, on the defense, and man, I feel bad for Titans fans in general. I've honestly enjoyed watching the Titans, especially because Derrick Henry, one of my favorite running backs in a long while, is Derrick Henry. But their Titans are starting to look like how the Chargers have looked for many years, and especially this year where they had a lot of injuries. I think the Titans had 5 different players go down with injury today, including Ryan Tannehill on the opening drive for them. You end up seeing Malik Willis. Yeah, Malik Willis came in. He only had one drive before he would end up getting pulled back out after Ryan Tannehill got wrapped. Threw 4 passes, completed 3 for 20 yards. Honestly, not too bad. But, Titans, I couldn't name them all. I think there was at least 5 Titans players that got injured and at least like 3 of them didn't return. So hopefully it's not long term. I hate seeing that. I would rather beat a team at full strength and earn it than beat a team that's like super beat up. And then that goes from a Chargers fan that has, seen a ton of injuries to the Chargers. I don't like seeing injuries. So, props to the Titans for playing through all that adversity. They looked, pretty solid, pretty good for the most part throughout most of it. Although it did feel like the Chargers were going to win this game, even when the Titans got it 14-14. It felt like Chargers were going to find a way to win it. In the second half, I think it was third quarter, might have been the fourth quarter, Titans were in a position where they were going to have an opportunity to get a field goal. It was like 3rd and 10, 3rd and 8, somewhere around there, where it was like a little bit 3rd and long. And Chris Rumph comes up with the big-time sack. I believe it was Chris Rumph. I think Morgan Fox might have been included in it when things are all said and done. And it was Chris Rumph. Chris Rumph got it by himself, won by himself. Big-time sack, forced the longer field goal attempt. I think it was a 51-yard field goal attempt. And they ended up missing it. The Titans ended up missing it slightly to the right of the goalpost, which keeps the Chargers up in that situation and keeps it so that the Titans would have ended up with 17, because if they would have made that, they would have had 17. Chargers would have been playing to tie and not to win there. Once again, I'm just looking through my notes here. Once again, Chargers had 0 passing plays in the red zone. That goes for the other drive as well. Austin Eckler on the other drive had a big time, pinball-like play where he bounced off like 5 guys and just would not go down. He got hit pretty much at the line of scrimmage and found a way to get all the way to the 3-yard line. And then in that situation, he earned that rep to get that rushing attempt, which he would score on the inside, slightly to the right. He would find his way into the end zone, score that touchdown there. So now you have 2 touchdowns from Joshua Kelly and from Austin Eckler. One note here, talking about the running backs. What's going on with Isaiah Spiller? I've kind of realized that. Austin Eckler, Joshua Kelly, and DeAndre Carter are the people that had rushing attempts, although DeAndre Carter's was for negative 10 yards from a really abysmal attempt of changing pace from Joe Lombardi. What's going on with Isaiah Spiller? And Sony Michel. Sony Michel used to be like a bigger part of this team. I honestly don't even know if he's still on the team at this point. I haven't seen him forever. Sony Michel was a big part of this team. He was getting more reps than Joshua Kelly. You were having 3 running backs play at all times. All of a sudden, you bring Isaiah Spiller into the fold. Joshua Kelly returns. He's looking just as good as before. Not so great today. He got 10 carries, 24 yards. I do enjoy seeing Kelly get some more touches there. Didn't have a big game, but Isaiah Spiller, I saw him on the sideline. He was in gear. Like, he wasn't just in like normal clothes. He was in his uniform, shoulder pads and everything. And he didn't even touch the field. I don't think he was in for like a passing play for blocking. I'm not sure what's going on there. I think he deserves some reps. He looks pretty decent when he is given the chance, but he's not given very many. And for the Titans drive there at the end, that would score the touchdown on. You have a 2-minute drill right there. Obviously, you have a 2-minute drill. You have no timeouts or 1 timeout. I can't remember quite exactly what it was. And the Titans didn't have Derrick Henry out for what would have potentially been the entirety of the 2-minute attempt, a 2-minute offense. For the first whole minute, Derrick Henry was on the sideline. Why are you doing that? Actually, as a matter of fact, there was 2 different instances earlier in the game on 3rd and 2. Both of these situations were on 3rd and 2, where Derrick Henry wasn't even on the field. Derrick Henry averages like 4.5 yards per carry throughout his entire career. And on 2 different instances, on 3rd and 2, you don't have him out there. And in your 2-minute offense, you don't have him out there for the entire first minute, and potentially wouldn't have had him out there at all if it wasn't for the Chargers calling a timeout, Brandon Staley, which I do think is a good idea, because if you don't call those timeouts, the clock gets rolling, you don't have a chance to win the game like the Chargers would end up doing. But just a little bit weird that the Titans didn't have Derrick Henry out there for the first minute, and potentially at all if it wasn't for the timeout from Brandon Staley. Now, of course, they do bring Derrick Henry out there, and he would be the one that puts him in a position to score, although Ryan Tannehill would be the one that does the QB sneak to get him in. Ends up having an opportunity to decide if they want to take the the extra point, or go for 2. They go for the extra point. Funnily enough, about 4 years ago, I think it was the London game, Titans versus Chargers. The Titans would actually go for 2. They would fail, and the Chargers would win because of it. I don't know why that would have any relevance in this situation. If anything, you'd think they would want to go for it again to, be like, oh yeah, we did it this time. But they go for the 1, and I think that's probably because the fact of how much time was left on the board. There was like 40 seconds left. It doesn't matter. If the Chargers need a field goal, whether they want to win the game or they want to, whether they're going to, accept a tie, like it's 14-14, or if they're down 15-14, 40 seconds, they're going to go down and try to get a field goal off. So why not, at least tie it so you have a chance to go to overtime? I think that's the biggest reason, especially because, the loss for the Titans in this instance puts them in a situation where the Jakes could take their spot in the next few weeks, where if they get a tie, they at least have half a lead on these guys. But Herbert gets the ball after a shaky game for the most part, not completely his fault, but not a great game. Yes, he had 300 yards, but he had 2 interceptions and 0 touchdowns. He throws a perfect pass to Mike Williams. I mean, a perfect pass. I don't know how many yards exactly it was, but it was at least like 30, 40. Perfect pass. Mike Williams is like, hey, give me it. Herbert puts it perfectly on there. Mike Williams comes down with it. He tries to get out of bounds. It almost looked like he did. Doesn't matter, though. I'm not going to complain because the Chargers do win this. It kind of looks like he did, and the announcers did mention it. Doesn't matter, though. Incredible pass there. The Chargers do attempt to throw a touchdown, although I don't know if they were trying to throw a touchdown there or just burn some more clock. I think they were burning more clock, especially with what happened at the end of the second half. But the Chargers come through with the win with Dicker, the kicker, from I think it was 47 yards or 41 yards, one of the two. The third game-winning field goal of the year for Dicker, the kicker. 2 with the Chargers and 1 with the Eagles, or I don't know. I don't remember who the other one was with. Cardinals, or it was against one of those 2 teams. I'm not sure. 2 with the Chargers though. Dicker, the kicker, comes up big time. And come on, let's get this man to the Pro Bowl. 3 game-winning field goals in a year. That's great. He's missed like 1 field goal over his entire time with the Chargers this year. Maybe he deserves some Pro Bowl votes. Now, I don't think he's actually to make it, but come on, let's give this guy a chance. Now let's talk some stats. We talked about how the game went, and I'm happy with how the game went for the most part. Offensively, I don't like it too much. So let's dig into that first. Chargers score 17 points. I think they average about 20, some lower 20s on what they score per game. Now they're going against a Titans team who has not been good in the passing game, pretty solid in the running game, and for some reason the Chargers leaned on the run game. Like I mentioned, a little bit weird. Austin Eckler, 12, Joshua Kelly, 10, and then 1 from Herbert and 1 from Carter. Those, whatever. You have 22 attempts against a really, really good rushing attack from the Titans. 22, I'm not too upset about it. It's not like 30. You do need to change it up, which will allow some opportunities for the offense, so you can't just drop everybody on the defense side of things. But there were some situations, especially when you're in the red zone, you only run the ball, you don't even try to run it. I'm not a huge fan of that. I don't think Joe Lombardi called a good game, honestly. It was average for him, but I still think he needs to go 17 points with Justin Herbert, and Herbert has 0 touchdowns. Not a good game. I think the second interception, I will blame Herbert slightly. He's good enough where he can take that risk there, and it consistently works out for him. Oh, sorry, my nose is running, boys. The first one, I'm not blaming Herbert at all. 313 yards. I think Herbert still had a pretty solid game. Below his standards, he's going to get hate for it, even though he doesn't deserve it. Speaking of Herbert, he looked a little bit upset on the sideline. He's not upset because the Chargers won. I think he wanted them to win by more. He expected them to win by more, and he definitely wanted to have a better game. So he did seem a little bit annoyed, which I think is good news going up against the Colts on Monday Night Football next week. Hopefully that fire continues throughout and we see a big game from Herbert. Passing-wise, Keenan Allen, 8 for 86. Keenan Allen's been spicy since he's returned to the Chargers team. Love to see it. Mike Williams, 4 for 67. And I think 2 of those receptions were on the final drive, and at least like 40 of those yards, maybe even 50 of those yards were on that final drive. So not a good game right until the end. Both interceptions were thrown at Mike Williams too. Mike didn't have a great game. When you look at stats, yeah, he did. And he came up big time. He was super important for the Chargers at the end of the game. So props to him for that. But he didn't have a great game for the most part. I'm glad he figured it out at the end though. You also have Joshua Palmer, 5 for 49. He got banged up there for a little bit. It almost looked like his hamstring was the issue, maybe his calf. I'm not quite sure exactly what it was, but he would return. He looked good. He came up, pretty important there late too. 5 for 49. Gerald Everett, 4 for 42. He's definitely seen a limited amount of use in this offense since we've seen Keelan and Mike return, but he's still a pretty important piece, and he gets yards when you need him most. Donald Parham, too, returned first game back in like 6 weeks, 3 for 35. He made a big-time catch, big-time play on the first drive, I want to say. That was like 20 yards. DeAndre Carter, 1 for 15. Carter, outside of punt return, has been super limited offensively, which that's on Joe Lombardi, too. Carter and Justin Herbert were doing great for a good portion this year, especially with, Mike and Keenan out. But once you get those guys back, it's like Joe Lombardi's erased him from it, which I think that's bullcrap. I mean, in total, DeAndre Carter touched the ball twice, one receiving 15 yards and one rushing for negative 10 yards. So we gained a total of 5 yards on 2 attempts. Why are we moving DeAndre Carter, who was an important piece to this offense for a good portion of the year? Austin Eckler, 2 for 12. As I mentioned, 12 for 58 earlier. He was injured. I think he touched the ball like 7 or something like that times, maybe 10 times in the first half, the least of the entire season. Really important piece of this offense. And then Joshua Kelly, 1 for 7. But defensively, it seemed like the defense kind of stayed on track with how they looked last year. They're continuing to step it up. And last week we saw a lot of great, pass defense-wise. Looked really, really good. Pretty solid this week too. I mean, you have the big pass breakups from Mike Davis. There's a few of those there. Asante Samuel Jr. had a couple pretty big plays there. I think he had a big one late in the game too. Kyle Van Noy had a really important one. I want to say it was like 3rd down and something, and like perfect coverage. And Ryan Tannehill throws it behind him anyways, but really good coverage. They played pretty good coverage. But what I'm most impressed with from this defense. Oh, and Nas Adderley with a big interception. Little bit overthrown, not too bad. I think the wide receiver could have made a play on it. Wide receiver does have pass interference, offensive on Mike Davis, but Nas comes up with that big interception. That was huge. Sadly, the Chargers would throw an interception on that offensive drive right after, but nonetheless, great play by Nas. But the biggest thing for the defense for the Chargers was they're getting a lot of pressure. Drew Tranquill had a sack. Kyle Van Noy had a sack. Chris Rumpf had that big-time sack. Joe Gaziano had a sack there. Morgan Fox was a participant in that Chris Rumpf sack. I don't think he actually assisted in it. Statistically, he didn't. But I actually don't feel like he did. But he definitely put enough pressure to force Ryan Tannehill to move a little bit, which allowed Chris Rumpf to get that sack. A lot of pressure. I mean, that's, 5 sacks, 4 sacks? Chargers have been struggling a lot. One bad thing I do have to say about the Chargers, outside of, the whole offense should be scoring more and Joe Lombardi and Justin Herbert having a tough game. I guess I did say a pretty decent amount of bad things. Offensive line still struggling. You get Corey Linsley back last week. You get Trey Pipkins back this week, and you still allow 3 sacks. That's not terrible. But entering this game, the Titans had 4 sacks through 4 games. So in one game, they nearly have as many as they've had the past 4 weeks. That's not good at all. But overall, for the most part, Chargers did pretty good, especially penalty-wise. 3 for 20 versus 6 for 62. Time of possession, actually, they were lower than the Titans. As for the Titans, honestly, not too bad of a game. You have 1 turnover. Ryan Tannehill throws an interception to Nas Adderley, slightly overthrown. Derrick Henry has 104 yards on 21 carries. No one else has more than 2 carries except for Ryan Tannehill, and it was 3 for 1 yard. So, whoop-de-doo. Derrick Henry's your leading receiver. Derrick Henry's not a great receiving back. So the fact that he has 4 for 59, I mean, that shows a lot, especially since they were missing their number 1 wide receiver entering this week. 4 for 54 from Okonkwo. I'm so sorry. And then Austin Hooper has 2 for 33. The rest of them, not too great, nothing big. Defensively, though, they played pretty solid, too. They had 3 sacks. Jeffrey Simmons, 2 of them were on big-time 3rd downs. But, yeah, Chargers come up with this big-time win. I think the last thing we should look at should be the playoffs, and this will be really quick. Come up with a big-time win. Chargers put themselves in a position where they're fully in control of their postseason, which is something we've been really hoping to see, especially with all these injuries and how low they've been playing. But this was an intense game, a stressful game, especially at the end there. But it was a fun game to watch. And I will say, as you can probably tell by when this is released, I had to watch this late. Didn't get to watch this live, which sucked. I was stuck on the side of the road when this game was live. But I watched it. I enjoyed it. I'm sad I didn't get to watch it live because there would have been a lot of fun tweets going on during that whole game. But for the playoffs, Chiefs today locked it in after their win over the Texans. The Bills locked it in after the win over the Dolphins, which is important because of that Dolphins loss. The Chargers take that seed, the 6th seed, over the Dolphins because they have the same record. Ravens lose a tough one to the Browns. That was Saturday. It was like 3-13 or something like that. So the Ravens are at 5. The Bengals move up to the 3 seed at 10-4. A couple teams next week could lock in their playoffs. Titans 7-7 are the 4 seed. The Patriots lost? Really? Didn't they score with like 3 minutes left in the game? I guess. Thanks, Raiders, even though I don't like the Raiders. Jets is 7-7, Patriots 7-7. So the Chargers are up technically 1 game on everyone else. And I think they hold over the Jets as well. Jaguars technically still in the race now at 6-8. Same with the Raiders and the Browns and the Steelers. Yeah. Chargers in the playoffs. Full control of their own doing. And next week they'll be facing the Colts on Monday Night Football. You can't take any game for granted, but that's a pretty good game to have late. Then the Rams and then the Broncos. Schedule definitely got a lot lighter, but you can't take any of these games for granted. But with that being said, I'm very thankful for this win. Happy Dicker, the kicker, was able to get his 3rd game-winning field goal, and happy that the Chargers were able to pull through even with a little bit of lackadaisical offensive game this week. But what are your guys' thoughts? What are your thoughts on this game? What can the Chargers do to improve? Was this offense as bad as I think it was? If you enjoy this content, please like and subscribe. It truly means the world to me, and it would definitely help after being stuck on the side of the road during this whole game with a pop tire. That would help make my day if you guys would give me a like. But nonetheless, I hope you guys enjoyed this game. I hope it taught some today. Hope it made you smile. Hope I made you laugh. That's something that's really important to me. Affects most of the day in a great way because every single day can be a great day if we all just put in the effort. And as always, you guys all be safe out there.